So it seems like we're even farther away apart than where
Nope.
we are at the beginning of this week.
Nope, not at all. I think the Republican conference is energized. I think Democrats have taken this too far. They have put politics ahead of the people that they serve. At the end of the day, people know what's happening with flights. They know what's happening with FAA people not getting paid and literally having to be Uber drivers at night to try to be able to make ends meet. We know what's happening with our teams, our staff. We see it firsthand. We know these Capitol policemen. We've heard their stories about not being able to pay childcare, not being able to make their rent or their mortgage payment or their car payment. We're done. We are absolutely done. There are people in my state that need their SNAP benefits. I mean, it's time to be the adults in the room. It's time to open the government. There is a really good package in front of them with regards to the 3 bills, which I hope all of you know that once we pass those 3 bills, that means SNAP, WIC, that means you've got MilCon VA, which is all Veterans Affairs. I mean, Capitol policemen, they'll all get paid and they'll be taken off the table. They will not be able to use them as leverage for the remainder of the year. And we know
Welcome back to 45th Perspective, the channel where we break down the truth behind what's really happening in Washington, D.C. without the political spin, without the media bias, and without the sugarcoating. We take you straight to the facts, and we analyze them like real patriots who care about the direction of this country. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. And if you believe in what we do here, if you believe that Americans deserve the truth, not propaganda, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/45th Perspective.
And we know that's exactly what they've been using them as. I mean, you heard Catherine Clark say that in the House, that suffering families are their leverage. This is just too much. And then when you look at them wanting to extend the ACA for an entire year, go look and see who has benefited from Obamacare. Since Obamacare got here passed in 2010, and then they went ahead in 2014 and had to create subsidies. Why? Because 4 years in, they knew it wasn't affordable. They knew it wasn't working. Then you look at 2021 and 2022, when Democrats added these additional subsidies because of COVID, they set the expiration date. This is a problem entirely of their making. Look, we want to make sure that healthcare is affordable for every single American, but that means we've got to get to the root of the problem and to fix this. We're not going to continue to do this because if you look at who's benefited, it is not people. People are paying more and insurance companies are making more. So let's be honest about what's happening. We'll have that honest conversation when we open up the government. And I feel good about where we are and feel good about the opportunity to move forward, hopefully this weekend.
How much longer do you think this shutdown is going to go for?
Well, look, when we put this bill on the floor, they'll have an opportunity to vote for it, and it'll have a new CR date. My guess is that CR date will be probably through the end of January, giving us an opportunity to do our work. So we have more appropriations bills we need to put on the floor. We have the NDAA, which we've got to finish and finalize. We'll have an opportunity to talk about healthcare and other things. So we have a lot of things to do. So my guess is that'll be the end of January, and we'll get back working for the American people. Once we pass it here, which I hope that our colleagues join us in doing that, then the House will need to pass it as well, and we'll get the government up and running. But do realize that they just voted down paying all federal workers, all furloughed and working federal workers. The Democrats all just voted to not pay them. And you would think that they would stop using these people and their lives as pawns in their political game. So I actually feel good about where we are, and I think that the Republican conference is united. We're united for the American people, and we're going to keep pushing.
Do you think there's going to be a vote tomorrow?
I do. Yeah. So stay tuned. I think you'll see text posted tonight. Would be my guess. There's a couple of items that we need to close out. Susan Collins has done a really good job in leading. She's been working with both sides of the aisle to try to get that closed out. I think that'll happen in the next few hours. Then that bill will need to be read. That's what we do in appropriations. We read the entire bill, which needs to be done. You read it out loud. So that'll take between 6 and 8 hours, and the bill will be posted. Yeah, so just stay tuned.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys.
Now, in this video, we're reacting to a recent press interaction following intense negotiations on Capitol Hill regarding the ongoing government shutdown. Essentially, what we're seeing here is a conversation about whether or not Congress, specifically the Senate, will pass a bill to reopen the government and fund essential services. On one side, we have Republicans arguing that Democrats have gone too far, holding American workers and families hostage just to push political talking points. On the other side, Democrats are using the shutdown to demand continued extensions to Obamacare subsidies and other welfare programs that have long been criticized for being unsustainable and ineffective. Let's dive into what this conversation really reveals about Washington today, and more importantly, what it means for hardworking Americans across this country. The speaker in this clip, one of the Senate Republicans, makes a point that should resonate with anyone who's been paying attention to how DC operates. She says, Democrats have taken this too far. They've put politics ahead of the people they serve. That one line captures everything that's wrong with the political establishment today. Because what we're witnessing is not just a disagreement over policy, it's a fundamental difference in priorities. Republicans are pushing to reopen the government, pay essential workers, and move forward with a plan that funds programs responsibly. Democrats, on the other hand, are holding everything up because they want to use the suffering of everyday Americans as political leverage. Think about that for a moment. Federal workers, people who keep this country running, aren't getting paid. The FAA is short-staffed. Capitol Police officers are struggling to pay their rent, mortgages, or childcare bills. Some are reportedly driving Uber at night just to make ends meet. And yet, Democrats are blocking funding bills, all to maintain talking points about the so-called Affordable Care Act, which hasn't been affordable for over a decade. This is what happens when the left controls the narrative. They frame every shutdown as Republicans refusing to compromise. But the truth is that Republicans have already put a serious proposal on the table, 3 separate funding bills that would reopen key parts of the government, ensure SNAP and WIC recipients get their benefits, and guarantee pay for veterans and federal law enforcement. Those are tangible steps toward stability. But Democrats won't accept them because, as one of their own leaders admitted, they're using the pain of suffering families as leverage. Leverage. That's the word that should make every American angry. When politicians talk about leverage, what they're really saying is that they're willing to let you struggle so they can score political points. It's one of the most disgusting games in Washington, and it's been going on for far too long. Now, let's talk about the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, because it's central to this whole debate. The speaker points out that Democrats are trying to extend the expanded ACA subsidies for another year, and she's right to call that out. Obamacare was sold to the American people as the solution to rising healthcare costs, but since it was passed in 2010, premiums have skyrocketed, deductibles have become unaffordable, and insurance companies are the ones who've profited the most. For years after Obamacare was enacted, even Democrats had to admit it wasn't working. In 2014, they created federal subsidies just to keep it afloat. Then, in 2021 and 2022, during the pandemic, they expanded those subsidies again, supposedly as a temporary fix. Now they want to make that expansion permanent. But what happens when temporary government programs become permanent? They turn into endless spending sprees that future generations of Americans will have to pay for. This isn't just about healthcare. It's about accountability. The Democrats keep telling us that Obamacare is helping people, but who's really benefiting? Not the working-class Americans struggling with $8,000 deductibles. Not the small business owners who can't afford to offer coverage. The ones benefiting are the big insurance companies, the pharmaceutical giants, and the lobbyists who line their pockets with taxpayer money. The truth is that Republicans want healthcare reform too, but reform that actually reduces costs instead of expanding bureaucracy. We want competition in the market, price transparency, and freedom for individuals to choose the plans that fit their families. We don't want Washington dictating every detail of what your doctor can or cannot do. That's not freedom, that's control. So when the speaker says, "We're not going to continue doing this," she's talking about stopping this cycle of temporary fixes, fake solutions, and political manipulation. She's saying enough is enough. And that's exactly what millions of Americans are thinking right now. You can feel the frustration in her voice when she talks about Capitol Police officers struggling to pay for childcare, or when she mentions people in her state who rely on SNAP benefits that are being delayed because of this shutdown. These are real people, not statistics, and yet, they're being used as pawns in a political chess game orchestrated by people who have never struggled to pay a bill in their lives. What stands out most here is the Republican plan. The proposed package includes 3 funding bills that cover SNAP, WIC, Veterans Affairs, and Capitol Police salaries. Once passed, these programs would be removed from the shutdown negotiations entirely, meaning they could no longer be used as bargaining chips by either side. That's smart, responsible governance. But Democrats refuse to move forward because it removes their leverage. And that's what's so ironic about this whole situation. The left constantly accuses conservatives of being heartless, of not caring about working families, yet they're the ones actively blocking pay for federal workers. They just voted against paying all furloughed and working federal employees. Let that sink in. The same people who claim to stand for the working class voted to keep those workers unpaid. Now, there's another key point in this conversation worth highlighting. Unity within the Republican conference. The speaker emphasizes that Republicans are united, that they're energized, and that they're ready to move forward for the American people. And honestly, that's something we haven't seen enough of in recent years. Too often, the conservative movement gets divided by internal disputes or distracted by media-driven drama. But when we come together, when we focus on policies that restore fiscal responsibility, defend freedom, and prioritize the American worker, we become unstoppable. You can sense that spirit in this conversation. The speaker's confidence isn't naive. It's grounded in a real understanding that Americans are fed up. People are tired of the games, the shutdowns, the media spin, and the endless excuses. They want leaders who act like adults in the room, who understand that government exists to serve the people, not the other way around. And that's exactly the message we should be amplifying as patriots. We need to remind every elected official that they work for us. The taxpayers, the families, the veterans, the police officers, those are the people who keep this country strong. They're not bargaining chips. They're not leverage. They're Americans, and they deserve better than this. The speaker also gives credit to Senator Susan Collins for working across the aisle to close out the remaining details of the bill. Now, while Collins isn't always on the conservative side of every issue, it's good to see at least some bipartisan cooperation aimed at reopening the government and getting paychecks flowing again. That's the kind of practical governance we need, focused on results, not rhetoric. Once the text of the bill is finalized, it will be posted publicly and read in full. That process can take between 6 and 8 hours, as the speaker explained. And that transparency is something worth noting. Too often, Congress passes 1,000-page bills in the dead of night without anyone reading them. But in this case, Republicans are insisting that the entire bill be read aloud before a vote. That's how government should work, openly, transparently, and with accountability to the people. So, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. This shutdown isn't just about budget numbers. It's about what kind of country we want to be. Do we want to be a nation where politicians exploit working families to score political wins? Or do we want to be a nation where elected officials actually solve problems, balance budgets, and make sure people get paid for the work they do? The answer should be obvious. But it won't happen unless voters start holding politicians accountable for their actions. Not their speeches, not their promises, but their actual votes. When Democrats vote to withhold pay from federal workers, they should be called out. When they refuse to pass funding bills that would feed families and support veterans, they should be called out. And when they try to use the pain of ordinary Americans as political leverage, they should be held accountable at the ballot box. The Republican Party isn't perfect, no party is, but right now, they're the only ones showing any real initiative to end this shutdown responsibly. They're offering a plan that reopens the government, protects critical programs, and lays the groundwork for serious policy debates in the coming months. That's leadership. That's what governing looks like. Now, let's talk about what happens next. The speaker believes there will be a vote soon, possibly within the next day. Once the bill text is finalized and read aloud, senators will have the opportunity to vote on whether to move forward. If it passes the Senate, it will then go to the House for approval. If both chambers pass it, the government can reopen almost immediately. But the real question is, will Democrats put politics aside long enough to do the right thing? Because at the end of the day, this isn't about Republicans or Democrats. It's about America. It's about whether we're still capable of coming together to solve problems without turning every disagreement into a national crisis. It's about whether our leaders remember who they serve. From my perspective, as someone who believes deeply in the values this country was founded on, freedom, responsibility, and opportunity, I think this shutdown has exposed a truth that many Americans already know. We cannot keep letting the political left dictate the terms of every debate. We cannot keep letting them expand government power, increase dependency, and punish success. We need to start reclaiming the American dream. That means standing up for fiscal discipline, for the right to work, for the right to keep more of what you earn, and for the right to choose your own healthcare without government interference. That means supporting leaders who are willing to make tough decisions, even when they're unpopular, because they know it's the right thing to do. That's why I stand with the Republican conference on this issue. They're not perfect, but they're standing up for the people who actually make this country work. They're standing up for the air traffic controllers, the veterans, the police officers, and the working families who deserve to be paid and protected. And they're standing up against a political establishment that would rather see Americans suffer than admit their policies have failed us. So, as we wrap up this video, I want to leave you with this thought. America needs adults in the room. It needs leaders who can rise above partisanship and remember that their duty is to the people, not to the party, not to the media, not to the lobbyists. The only way we're going to fix this country is if we start electing leaders who care more about doing what's right than doing what's popular. Thank you for watching 45th Perspective. If you believe in what we're doing here, if you believe in standing up for truth, freedom, and American values, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us grow, and your voice helps us make a difference. Until next time, stay informed, stay strong, and stay patriotic. This is 45th Perspective, where the truth still matters.